So I've already modeled this before and just taken a screenshot of it and imported it as a reference image. So I'll just recreate it again. So a quick note on reference images. You can only import them from the desktop currently, and you can't see them in the desktop. You can only see them in VR. So that's hopefully going to be fixed in the future as well. But I personally, I don't use desktop at all for anything. Don't even use the menus. I do it all from within, because I stream through virtual desktop. So I do everything from within VR, including importing the refs. So with the refs, if you hold down the menu button, and then you just turn your hand, so that the controller is facing straight to the ref, you'll get your laser pointer, and then you can just use the primary trigger, move it around, thumbstick to scale it up and down, and then while it's you have the menu held down and you're pointing at the ref. If you press the top button on the primary controller, you get this sub menu here, and then I always, pretty much 100% of the time, I always pin the refs to the scene so that when I navigate, when I move around, they're going to stay locked in place. Otherwise, I feel if you have a lot of references, it just gets really weird, messy, and then when you reopen your scene, they're kind of all over the place. So I like to just lock them, and then you can angle snap them, so you can use it as sort of an orthographic. Even though you don't have orthographic in VR, you could still lock it in place and use it as a rough guide. You can group them, center them. You can see the options here anyway. And the other thing was to hide your refs. You can just go down here to visibility and click that open with the trigger, and then you can globally hide your refs here. And yeah, there's no hide on this. So if you're wondering how to do that, you can just globally hide them. And that's pretty much it for the refs. There's still work to be done on this. Like, it's not ideal. I think they want to add a tractor beam. So sometimes you want to just tractor beam them in without. At the moment, you have to kind of move them in manually, scale them up. But yeah, there's a few other things to be added. But that's enough on refs for the moment, just to get going. So for these tutorials as well, I'm mostly going to be trying to use these live blend primitives. Like all this stuff, I can make this out of the regular clay layers, but for this, or these kind of videos I've been doing for beginners, I sort of want to use, because I haven't used this much myself, these prims. So I'm sort of doing it, the tutorials for for people to learn the basics, and also just to practice with them myself. One is I will be using, you can mix and match. I'll do some of this stuff I did do with the regular clay. Um, and like as I say, you can do all this with the regular clay. Um, it just depends what you're doing. If you want to leave stuff editable, or if you want to just work destructively, it depends. So we'll start off with let's start with the handle here first. Just start off with the cube, up the res, gizmo in just to adjust the basic size. Stretch it out, just getting the rough size. Duplicating it then with the gizmo. Just on around. I'll just keep this, use this piece for subtracting, say, adjust it roughly, and then I'm just going to keep this piece and deal with that later. I'll cut and paste it into its own container and then convert it to clay, so I'll just leave that for the moment. I'll fill it onto that. Just adjust the width again. All this stuff can be adjusted again later, but you want to kind of get it roughly the size, so you don't have to adjust too many. Hopefully in the future be able to adjust multiple at the same time, but at the moment you can only do one. So I'll just duplicate again, and then I'm jumping ahead there, that's not that piece, so I'll just delete this, do it again, undo it, and just create where these blended shapes. Now we're going to create those curves, the outer and the inner curve at the end of that handle piece. Just give it a bit of blending, and that bulge you can see, as explained in one of the other videos, that's whenever you have two flush surfaces like that and you blend them, it'll bulge out on the flat sort of flush surfaces, but there's nothing you can do about it. It's in all these kind of SDF programs. You can just add a piece, I'll show you later, you can just add a piece, sort of a global subtract to just take that off, then kind of trim it back. So as you can see, whenever I'm inside the container, I'm just duplicating layers rather than creating new layers all the time, and then just fiddling around here to get that curve. And you don't have to be too precise on that there, like get it as good as you can, but if there's little tiny artifacts, later on if you convert to the clay, you can always use the smooth brush just to smooth them out, which I do, which I know I'm going to do in that area because it's I want to match up that fillet there, and just on the real kind of pipe wrench like that sort of metal, you usually have quite large rounded fillets. So this end piece, I'm going to cut and paste that into its own container, just so it's not blending there. Keep it separate. And first I'll just trim the end off that. A bit more adjusting. On that one there, I'm going to cut and paste it there now. And just adjust for size. And then I want to just spin it around there. So sometimes I forget to do that. When you're adding your round, you set it to the size you want, and then you add the round and it's on the wrong side, so you have to rotate it. So if you have rounds like that, just try and do it at the start, just save you having to rotate and readjust the size. So same thing again. You can see it's a lot of repetitive sort of stuff. Once I'm in the container, I'm just duplicating pieces and then just changing them. Here, this is a bug here. I actually duplicate the container and the pivot is off. So that's just a bug. So just get rid of that and go inside, back inside then, and then just instead of I clone the container rather than going inside and cloning the layer, and then we'll just use this to trim. As I was saying, like it's repetitive sort of stuff. You're just adding and subtracting to make up compound shapes. So once you break these down into their shapes, tweaking and adjusting, and then I'll just copy that again and change it over to the triangle shape. Get rid of the round and then just use that for the tooth, for the cutout for the teeth. And it's nice to be able to do the likes of this with the non-destructive, obviously, then, because you can come back and change the size of the teeth or the amount of the teeth quite quickly, rather than having to, if you've cut all them out destructively then and you want to change it, it's just an extra bit of work. And I grouped them, but I try to avoid grouping at the moment with you can see here that it's gone wonky again, the gizmo. There's some sort of bug there I found with groups as well, using these live prims. As I said, this is all beta, so what I'm doing is I'm just going to switch over to the world, just so that the gizmo then is aligned to the world rather than wonky. But yeah, that's just a bug, so hopefully all these bugs will be fixed as it gets more developed. And just same again, I forgot to rotate it there for the, I want the rounded end facing up, but it's handy enough here with the live blend prims, because everything's going to stay there, the teeth, whereas if I had done that and cut out the teeth and then I realised I had to rotate it, but it's not going to matter here because the cutout for the teeth will just stay in place. run the round. I flipped that around 90 degrees, and I decided just to delete those. I copied the teeth from the other one, but I said it's easier to just do them fresh and put that into its own container then as well. The top side of the jaw, the clamp, yeah, rotate it around, just roughly get it into position, and same thing again, set the triangle, and then just position that around for the cutout for the teeth on this side. Set it to subtract, adjust the size, set it to subtract now, yeah. And then I'll probably, there you go, no, that's it, yeah, I thought I might make it bigger, but, oh yeah, there we go. I actually recorded this. This is the third one of these models I've made, because I made it earlier on, the whole model, and then I realised that I forgot to press record, so I had to do it all again, but practice makes perfect. So I just upped the res there. Try not to go too crazy with the res on these live blend frames, because it starts to bog down the performance, but they're working on that. They're refactoring everything onto GPU, so it should be way faster, but still you can still get decent enough res there, and then you can always up the res at the end if you convert them to clay. And then because you're keeping things in separate containers, you can have individual resolution sizes for the different containers. Container for the top part, same again here. I'm just gonna blend. It's great to be able to do this with the live blend frames. As I said, I can do all this manually if I want, but with the clay tools, but these types of curves, it's nice to be able to do them, as you can non-destructively adjust them, and hopefully in the future as well, when they add more features, we get some sort of spline SDF, so that'll be it'll open up way more options for creating shapes, some sort of curve control point. And also, when that GPU work is done and I continue work on this, one of my big requests would be just a better system for selecting the operands on the viewport, because as you can see, I tried to never use that outliner. I use it the odd time now because some shapes are hard to get because of the way the selection is in the viewport, but I never use the outliner. No way, I just prefer to do everything in the viewport. And just give that another little bit of res. Add some fillet. And that's the other nice thing about these non-destructive. You can add a fillet there, and then later on I decide I want a bigger fillet, so you can just go in and make it bigger, whereas you can't do that with the regular clay layers. Once you commit to the fillet, that's it. You can go in and make it bigger, do it manually with smooth, but it's just extra work, and you won't get it as perfect as like a parametric bevel. So back to that other container, and just same again, duplicate off that main layer, and add a mirror, change the axis, and then just get them in place. And then, as I say, you can come back and adjust them later. You just have to get them roughly into place, and then when the other parts are in, you can adjust. So it's sort of like doing a live block out. You can block the stuff out, and then when all the pieces are in, you might certain parts, they might need to change proportions or whatever, relative proportions to the other parts, so it's handy like that as well when it's all non-destructive. And there's that, the large boolean I was talking about, that to just cut down that bulge and adjust it then, and you can see where the bevel, on the left side there, the bevel isn't matching up perfect, but you can come back in when that's converted to clay and just hit it with the smooth. And that's another fantastic thing here. I'm just setting the order of operations to get into the right place in the stack, so it's affecting the parts I wanted to affect. Yeah, the other great thing about Modeler is the only program where you have live blend, prims, and the other sort of SDF, where you can use sculpting brushes, smooth brush, and warp and everything, so you can use both. So there's no other program at the moment that can do both. So yeah, same again, just duplicate that part and then just cut and paste it into its own container, and just, it's more of the same. It's just set it up there with a chamfer on it, just the size. Take the round down a bit, and then just set it up there for the duplicate, and set it up here for these for the notches that are going to be cut out of the side there. And you see, look, it's pretty fast the way you can just keep duplicating layers and then quickly switching them, changing the parameters. You can create a piece like this that I'm creating here at the moment very quickly, whereas if you're poly modeling that, it'll take you a bit of setup. Or even if you use booleans and poly modeling, you still have to deal with all the dodgy geo then, and clean up the geo. But here you can make something like that just in a minute or two, just reusing parts, changing a few parameters, adjusting the size. It's pretty handy. And then for these parts, like if you're going to be baking this for game res mesh as a high poly, it's good as well that you can keep these live, and you can adjust the fillets to be larger or smaller depending on how you want the normal map to be in the bake. So you see there, I'm trying to do a mirror, but it wasn't working out. It's to the center, it was on the world axis rather than the local, so it's just easier in that case. I just copy that across and just eyeball it. And then just move those in. See, that's great the way you can do that as well after the fact. Whereas if I say you had to cut them out manually, you can't adjust them then after the fact. Same again, duplicate, select, subtract, position it, add a little bit of blend to get that, get a fillet there on the edge. That's that piece done. This piece now in its own container. So for that, in that case, I did start from. I just started with it's a new container, so I just started with a cube from within the menu. So you can see how you can sort of quickly build up the shapes here. And some of them, take a little bit of planning, and just a bit of reordering of the booleans, as you'll see from that other piece there. Once I get I'm just adjusting these a little bit to fit in a bit better. Now that I have that other part in place that I started to work on, you can kind of get a better idea of how the parts are going to fit in together. Yeah, so this one here, like you can see, where with a bit of planning and the use of a few different operands, properly sort of set up in the stack, you can get a shape like this fairly handy. Same again then, duplicate, change it over to a cylinder and then rotate it around. Just line it up. These here as well, when you're lining up the surfaces, I'd like if they snapped, but they don't, so you kind of have to eyeball them. But like if you leave it sticking up a tiny bit, you can use that trick where you just drop it an overall sort of a global operand on top just to trim. It's like you're just trimming the surface back. So you don't even have to worry about that too much. And then here, just going to do the order of operations. So now you can just trim off that and get your curve at the top then as well. And then for, it's easy enough to change the size then. And once you have your boolean set up, it'll pull into that and cut off automatically. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about there, when you have to kind of line them up, but it's better to leave it sticking up a bit above where you want it, and then you can just trim it back rather than leaving it down below. So this is the part here now I was saying you can just have to get that outer curve there, because there's no primitive, parametric primitive that'll give us where you can have an external rounded corner like that. So you can just use your cylinder and then if you pull that out, obviously the corner comes out, and then you just use another subtract operand and then just put it in the stack above that other one, so it only affects the corner and not that other one. I explained all the order of operations thing there in one of the other videos. Same again, just copy into the same container, and then I'm just setting it to union there, just so I can sort of see what I'm doing. See what I'm doing when I set it up. Once it's rotated into place there with the rounds in the right place. Yeah, that's pretty much that part, except for the hollowing out now. So just grab the just easier to move it all and then just adjust one side instead of on the other side. You'd have to adjust two bits, and then just grab that the main primitive there that started it, and then just scale it down a bit, set it to subtract, and then just cut it out and then adjust to maintain your the thickness that you want to right around. As I said, hopefully in future releases you'll be able to grab two at the same time. Rather than having to do it. You can see that piece there, so we just pull that out a bit more, and then it gets into that trim part and cuts it off exactly where you want. Just readjust that part there. Just forgot to copy that one there. Some sort of weird bug happening again, so just copy that down for the bottom. Do the same here, just trim the bottom off. And as I say, you can go in later on with your smooth when you convert that, and just clean up that clean up the fillet there in the corner. You can see where it's the fillet's uneven. So yeah, it's easy to just, instead of fiddling around with those bits, just hit it with the smooth brush later on. And then I'm just using that, duplicated that, set to subtract, and then I'm just using that to clean up the top surface. Just needs to go down a little bit more. Just the thickness on the bottom. And just give it a bit of blend in there, so you can get that fillet on the subtract. And now I've cut and pasted that into its own container. It's just hitting the wrong. I forgot to go. I was outside the container, scaling uniformly rather than inside to adjust them sides. What am I doing now? I'm setting it to world. As I said there, sometimes that sometimes the gizmo goes a bit wonky, so just have to set it to world. It's just some sort of a bug. And same again, just to trim off that part. Now I could have just, I know I'm going to convert that to clay later on, so instead of doing this, I could have just easily trimmed that later on. Once it's a clay layer, but either, no big deal. You know, because you won't always be converted to clay. Well, you will eventually, because you have to, of course, to be able to export it. But just keep them alive as long as you can. Keep them non-destructive. You know, for that part, then the knurled thumb screw there. I'm just using a regular clay layer here, because as I mentioned in the other videos, you can mix and match. You don't have to use one or the other. That's the power of being able to use both, mix and match. The conversion process obviously is only one way. You can only convert live prims to clay. You can't convert clay to live prims. So the reason I'm building that up there is because at the moment you can only use mirror repeater on Z axis. So I'm always annoying the devs to change that so we can use it anywhere in the scene at any axis, but at the moment you can only use it there. It's locked into Z. So you'll see now why I'm going to use it here for these knurled parts. I am just remaking them. I want them to be a bit wider, and that's an example there. Like, because I used it with destructive clay, I had to redo it again, undo and redo. But if it was the live blend, I wouldn't have had to do that. But I suppose it's an example of why you might want to use the live. And yeah, here I'm using the mirror repeater for the knurls. One of my favourite tools in Modeler, the mirror repeater. And then I'm just gonna eyeball it and then use you know, as I'm holding that down, I'm just pressing the thumbstick on the secondary to do the linear array. And then once that's set up, I'm going to turn on the radial and just set the sides. And the linear array now is destructive, but the radial repeater there is, you can go in and change the sides at any time, so that's non-destructive. Just fill in the back sides. trim them off there just with the regular clay erase tool. And then I like going in here with warp. And you can just tweak these now to sort of match up. Just go, this is another beautiful thing about VR. You can just go through like this in your own view, like your own, as if you're doing this in real life. You can see exactly where they need to go. Just it bends around with the cylinder then. And that's pretty much it. Just roughly put it into place, use the gizmo to snap the rotation to 90 and then just rotate it around. And then I'll just use the I'll just adjust the size again then of the hole with the live prims. And here's an example where I'm going to have to use the, no, I got it there. So I was going to have to use the outliner, but got it from underneath. And here's a bug here again now, that's happens sometimes. From that side it won't, it's pulling, it won't pull from one side or the other. It's uniform scale, but I was able to work from the other side, so not too bad. These are all quite minor bugs though, like you can get around them, but and they will be fixed, so I'm not too bothered. Because when you report these bugs on the beta forums, you know, the devs usually sort them out pretty quickly. So that was something to do with because I think I had it set to world there. So I'm just gonna invert that selection and then hide, and then yeah, I think I had that set. See the way it's off, so I set it back to local, and then it's sorted out. And yeah, and I'm just using, this is the destructive clay erase tool, just to give it an extra little bit of detail. It's going to be hidden, and you can see there that mistake I made. I didn't center it up properly, but in this case it doesn't really matter too much. And now I'll just make these the little rivets, a bit of taper, a bit of fillet, lay down the clay, just freehand it in. Trying to stick to scale it while I'm grabbing it, and then again duplicate, scale, the last piece there. Now this is where I'm going to make a few more adjustments on this before I convert it over to clay. Yeah, convert it across there now. I'm just using the going to use the warp tool here with the gizmo. As I mentioned in another video as well, like some of this stuff, like you know, we can do a lot of this by hand as well. With warp, I like to do stuff by hand without using gizmo, just to give it a bit more realism. I kept it sort of cleanish, I suppose, for this tutorial or whatever. But when I'm doing my own stuff, like I do a lot of this stuff by hand, and I don't mind the rough finish to it. Now I don't want it to be all over the place, but just little, especially something like this out of this metal. If you look at one of these in real life, it's you know, it's got dings and bangs and warps, and it's far from perfect. So when you do stuff by hand, you're going to get that sort of irregularity. For, you know, it's for realism, I suppose. When if you get something like this all textured and rendered, those little imperfections add to the realism, rather than, you know, looking way too CG. So here's now, I just converted this, and I'm using smooth just to polish up that. Remember I talked earlier on about that little artifacts that don't worry about. You can just smooth it out. Same again, just a little bit of smooth there. And there. And merge these together, and then unmerged, undo, and just adjust that a bit more, just to move that curve back there. And see, you kind of messed it up, so I'm adding a bit more res, just pulling in manually. And I think, yeah, I messed it up again, so I think I'll give it one more level of res, undo it and give it one more level of res. Just undoing there with the thumbstick, and another level. Merged, and then merged before pulling that back, so use the warp tool again. Just get that. If you watch the video with I did with the screw, yeah, I was talking about this sort of stuff where see something like this as well. Like there might be where that was made in a factory, where those parts join, if they were welded or anything. It's even if it's welded and grinded and buffed and everything, it's still going to be. It's not going to be perfect unless it's all cast in one piece. But usually when we're texturing stuff like this, we're trying to weather them a bit as well. So it's good to have the weathering in the modeling as well. And that's not an excuse for messy modeling. It's just take it from me. These things are going to look better when there's imperfections on them and they're fully textured and rendered. And that's pretty much it. Just a little bit more, maybe tweaking here and there. Add a bit of a fillet there. So we'll just put some blend onto that to give it that fillet. And hopefully now in the future we'll have a couple of options as well with the blend fillets. So you might be able to get chamfers or step bevels or whatever. So yeah, this is just fine little bits and pieces of tweaking. And that other part there, a bit more smooth. And that cut out piece as well. Just a little bit of a rotation. Just that, fix it up. And that is pretty much it.